A chat I've wanted to do for some time, we've wanted to do for some time, with Sydney stand-up comic Billy.darcy. Billy being a stand-up comic, also host of the excellent podcast Get Around Me. And it's a collaboration that has been a few years in the making, primarily because as the three of us sit here, we do so as ex-grade cricketers. And Billy's had his own experiences playing grade cricket. He's, for the last couple of years, been reflecting on the cricket as well. And we just want to get him in. He's a Sydney comic. We're down here in Melbourne, but he's got a Bucks party. So we're like, why don't you...
it's on the way.
Why don't you slide on into the studio here and...
Lads, what a crossover. This is unbelievable. I feel like this is kind of like the Avengers for blokes who don't root heaps. Do you know what I mean? Let's get another desperate bloke in. That's what this pod needs, triple it up.
Yeah.
But no, I am a former grade cricketer, and this is like probably the most nervous I've been to be on a podcast, to be honest.
Really?
Because I am a fan. I'm a fan first, a guest second. So if I start creaming myself at Higgins' sharp takes, I apologise.
What's it like seeing Higgins in the flesh?
Arms are bigger than you could imagine. Yeah. And I thought they were pretty big.
Yeah.
And they're still bigger than you could think.
Unbelievable.
But I imagine Higgins, your wardrobe is kind of like a supervillain. Like you got like 3 of the same shirt, just pressed perfectly. You go, same again. If it's not fucking broken, hey lads.
We're away. So Billy, run us through just to establish your own credibility or lack of credibility as we're about to dissect Australian cricket in this moment of tumult and hysteria. And we should note we are recording mere hours before the second test gets underway. So all of these takes will become redundant because we know in cricket the thing that last happened is not the thing that next will happen, but we must reflect on it that way. So, what is your cricket story, particularly in relation to grade cricket?
Well, I played grade cricket for years. And then...
And where? Like, where did you play?
So I played at Manly in Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney
I got
cricket.
as high as 2s, which
you played second grade?
Got to 2s, which, you could go glass half empty and think never got to 1s. But my dad only got to 3s.
Yes.
So the Darcys, we're coming one generation at a time. Yeah. My great-grandson will be playing second 11 and it's going to be sick. Hopefully medicine has caught up to the point where I can really still be alive for that. Yeah. And that will be awesome. So second 11,
like you mean New South Wales second 11?
New South Wales second 11.
If it's still around. Could be like Chennai Sixers.
Yeah, he'll be in the Mumbai Academy and I'll be a very proud old man.
Nice.
But yeah, so pretty average cricketer and was never that hot either. So rocking a hard place traditionally, but I was able to, I'm quite outgoing.
Yes.
So I became the club captain because no one else really wanted to organise 3 barbecues a season.
Yeah.
And I was
club
able
captain
to...
at Manly, that's a pretty big deal.
Manly, it was pretty good.
A famous club in Sydney.
Very famous club, very strong club.
Yep.
Financially strong club as well. Check the books. Fraser's doing a beautiful job there.
Yeah.
And
that's, you say Fraser, that's Mitch Stark's manager.
Mitch Stark's manager. Jessica Watson's manager.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Wow. Let's not forget what she did.
A lot of people have, haven't they? A lot of people have forgotten, haven't they? Just like 9/11, never forget.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was in a boat once, but didn't make a movie about it. But but yeah, I was the club captain. It was quite a coveted position at the time.
Yeah.
But no one really wanted to do it. I asked to do it. And because I enjoyed the social side of things. And we had such a fun time. It was the best years of my life. And then I stopped playing at like 23.
That's quite old in grade cricket,
that is
23.
Old. You made it all the way.
I've got mates who are still going at like 27, 28, which I think is just crazy, to be honest. But the thing is, when I started doing stand-up more and more, I couldn't, God forbid, I had to miss 1 or 2 games a season, and I had to miss a couple of Tuesdays. But as you know, even though you're playing 4s and 5s at 24, you still must behave like you're an elite athlete.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So you can't really play unless you can commit 9 months of the year to this club that you're also giving $1,000. So that was kind of the end of my grade cricket career. And I would fill in for a couple of seasons. And I thought that would be so cool, best of both worlds, Hannah Montana. Because you don't have to train, but I can still come back and hang out with the lads. And, you leave grade cricket at 23, you think, wow, I got like 54 friends that I'll have for life. And then 2 weeks into the first off season, you go, I think I might talk to 2 of those cunts ever again.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of the vibe. And then you fill in every now and then. But I thought filling in would be cool. Playing 4s and 5s, come and fill in. But basically, you rock up. You haven't hit a ball in 6 months. You have your front pad blown off by like a 16-year-old who's been training really hard. And then you're just hanging out with 10 blokes you don't know.
Yep.
Because all your real friends play twos.
Yes.
And it's just, I remember the last game I ever played of grade cricket, I made 2 off like 30 balls in 5s, batting 3. It was embarrassing because I was out there for a while. It was a bit Marnus-esque.
Yes.
Where it was like, if I just nicked off straight away, people say, oh, you got a good one.
Yep.
You know, that's, you know, Bill got a good one.
Can happen.
It can happen.
Yeah.
But the fact that I was out there for quite some time, people saw that I didn't get a good one. I got a lot of bad ones and I didn't really do anything with them.
Yes.
And then I was sitting around with like a bunch of 15-year-olds talking about the nap plan, thinking, this is me. I'm not coming back. Yeah. It was me, the 50-year-old captain, his son, and 9 year 10 students and their parents.
Nice.
Yeah. Manly had a great like culture. Like
we did have a good culture.
And like because one year when I was playing towards the end, Manly won the Spirit of Cricket Award, which was introduced after, I think there was like a review into the Australian cricket culture, generally speaking, where we were all cunts for years. And so they brought in like the
Sorry, you mean when we were winning for years?
Sorry, yeah, my mistake.
Sorry, you just misspoke there, unfortunately.
Yeah. When we were winning.
And then like Manly won the Spirit of Cricket Award, and I remember playing them maybe twice that year, and the abuse on the field was outstanding from
they were
Manly.
the worst.
Yet winners of the Spirit of Cricket Award. So the culture was so strong.
Yeah, and we did win a lot. Like in the 5 or 6 years I played, we won like 3 club champs, like shitloads of premierships. But we were pricks about it for sure. Because, I mean, I never played first grade, but as if you even fucking could, because half our first grade team had all played shield cricket. It wasn't like other clubs where it's like everyone's at TAFE and playing first grade on the weekends.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I had to like take Adam Crosswaite's spot. I'm like, dude, are you out of your fucking mind? I'm doing an arts degree.
Yeah.
Like this is ridiculous. But we were really good. But it was a culture thing because we had very intense coaches, I think. Because we had Dean Gilchrist, Adam's brother.
Yes.
And he was a bit of a psycho. Great guy. Yeah. Great guy, but
so what was the sort of
what was the brand of psychopathy?
Well, imagine Gilly, but he never made it. You know what I mean? It was a lot, and he would refer to the club as a bus, and he was the bus driver. Okay, so he would say, "You're on the bus, and I'm the driver."
Yes,
and we're driving towards a club championship. And I remember one time at the start of the season, he said, "Call me old school, but I don't think anyone should have a beer until the job's done." And he was referring to the job being the season, right? We thought he meant like round 1 against Gordon. I was thinking, yeah, mate, let's go pump Gordon and then absolutely send a few.
Yeah.
He was talking about March, like 6 months from now.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So that's how intense he was.
Sort of Kobe stuff, job not finished.
Yeah, and he was a proper club coach in that my first year, 16, playing 5s, I reckon I met him in February of that season.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it would have been an honour to get on a contact.
I remember he gave me some throwdowns and really helped me with my batting. I was like, fuck, this would have been sick 5 months ago. Do you know what I mean? I've been making that mistake you've corrected every week for a while now. And he was like, wow, nice to meet you, mate. You seem like a nice kid. And I've been playing for the club for the whole year. Yeah. So, and that was the vibe back then. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like this, everyone go around the circle and introduce yourself to anyone you haven't met. Yeah. It was like first graders talk to minimum third graders. There was a bit of that sort of stuff.
Of course. That's proper grade cricket. That's
that's how it was. Yeah. And it was like, I didn't mind it, to be honest.
My first year of playing grade cricket, Gordon, my club, they'd lost every single game in the season in first grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were still like, they were the absolute kings. They were the pharaohs, you know, they were untouchables. They hadn't won a game all year. They played the entire season winless.
Yeah, I know, but it's just a status thing.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But that status is really the foundations of upon which Australian cricket's success has been built for like well over 100 years. Like, going back to the fundamentals of TGC, like it's a feudal system.
It really is.
Your kings and your barons at the top, followed by your aristocrats, folled by your paupers, and then underneath that is your lepers. You know, your 4th and 5th graders, your 6th graders who turn up in whites to training and stuff like that. And now right now, there's a lot of tumult in Australian cricket about the erosion of pyramids. You know, like there's ancient Egypt style to that. But so to my question to you, Billy, is like, Do you look back on that time where your club coach essentially ignored you for 5 or 6 months before introducing himself to you, like, as the making of you as a person? Like, do you think that Australian cricket needs more of that kind of hostility and ignorance?
Well, to be honest, I did not play grade the next season because I was, I was kind of like, fuck this guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
With respect, of course, to his body of work and the various clubs he's worked at. But yeah, it wasn't,
and it is a body of work.
And it is a body of work. Yeah. And grade cricket is something, to be respected. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, it wasn't like that fun. No, it wasn't very fun at all.
You don't look back and go like, and that's what toughness was, and that was me learning. Like, oh no, a guy was just very rude and dismissive to me as a human.
Yeah, no, honestly, the first time anyone ever really knew my name was at a Christmas party when I was like 18. So I played when I was 16 under Dean Gilchrist. Yeah. He never knew my name. Went back to Shires because I was like, at least they know my name there. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's
you have to work hard to get name recognition at a club.
Also, it's like, I wonder why I ended up doing stand-up comedy. Like, fucking hell, the building blocks of when you're becoming a man, no one will even look at me, let alone say my name out loud. So God forbid I went and found some attention elsewhere in inner west pubs. But I mean, yeah, you could say it's fucking Dean Gilchrist's fault. Yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian.
Right. Yeah.
When you look at it that way.
Yeah.
But and then I came back, and then there was a Christmas party where I was doing like the 5th grade wrap up. I was quite pissed, and I said a couple of funny things. And I remember a few of the first grade boys laughed, and they said I looked like Ben Lee, the musician.
Got it.
Yep. And then bam,
you're away.
And you might think, oh, they're saying you look like Ben Lee. That's an insult. It's like, but they are saying something. Do you know what I mean?
Any publicity.
Before it was not even blinking, straight past me. Yeah. Sometimes they just put their kit directly on top of yours. Like they like could not like see it it was not in their quantum field.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It was like sort of the multiverse in the Marvel films where I was the other Spider-Man.
Yep.
And we would only come together if like a bloke had died or something, So yeah, it was definitely old school back then. But there was stuff that seeped through that, like you're saying, like first graders, there would be a guy in 3rd grade who was an absolute weapon at cricket. And you could see he would be a first grader one day. And he might be as good as a bloke who played first grade, but he would dress like shit.
Yep.
And the first grade guy would dress so well. And you would like to think that it's all a meritocracy, but if you're the selector and you go, last time you saw these blokes was at the season launch and you're thinking fucking Jamo was dressed like Higgins looking the goods.
Yeah. This
other bloke was wearing a piping hot tea. We're all human at the end of the day. We're not AI robots.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We're not like Robert Irwin or whatever, clicking away on the telly. So as much as you want to pretend those things don't matter, they do seep in.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
These are the unspoken rules of gaining, of progressing through cricket and life. It's not about runs and wickets necessarily.
But you guys actually sort of snake eating itself became like you were observing the culture and then it came around and then you guys were pushing the culture, I felt like. Because when you guys first started that Twitter account, a few blokes at Manly thought it was me. And it was the best compliment of all time. Because I'd never heard of it. And I was like, what's this? And it was so funny. But you guys like the first people to ever like shine a mirror on grade cricket, I feel like.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
Or like talk about it publicly.
Yeah.
It was under the veil of...
But then new blokes who came... I was like 15, 16 when you guys started. But then when I was like 20, blokes who were 15 were coming in and you guys were already almost telling them what grade cricket was before they got there. And then so you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a bit of that. But yeah, and there was like a lot of the Triple C, the Century Circuit chop. That was big when I was playing. And... Which I can't believe I've just said it into a microphone.
Yeah, how does it feel going out of the mouth?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't think I'll be doing the gala next year at the Comedy Festival. Trump's in, Billy Darcy's on the mic talking about the Triple C, this isn't great for optics. But
that like really, really mean coach or like that idea of like toughness? Because when you hear like pro cricketers, they've always come across someone in their life that was just like abusive to them, right? And then they look back on it when they've made it and they're like, you know what? I didn't like it at the time, but I can see what was happening there. Like, but when you're just playing like threes and you just go to work on Monday, it's like, this guy's just a cunt.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? He has not progressed my cricket in any way.
Yes, 100%.
I kick him. Like, that's my technical flaw. like, please can I have a drink of water?
Yeah, there's a bit of that. There used to be a bloke at Manly Cricket who captained threes who was just a notorious cunt.
Yeah,
but he was such a good cricketer.
He was.
Yeah, I won't say his name, but everyone knows. But he was such a good cricketer that there was a thing where it's like, you could, like if you could fucking take 3 for and hit 60 off 50 balls, you were kind of allowed to be a cunt. It was almost a license.
He did his research. He did his research. That guy, like, he used to like sledge guys for changing clubs.
Oh yeah,
and there was like a first year at our club, for instance, and like he'd played a different, and like he knew his name. It was like he's doing research before the games.
Yeah,
to sledge third graders.
He did that to me. I genuinely remember getting out in third grade, and I'd change clubs to Norths, and if we're all talking about the same guy. He said, fuck off back to Balmain. and my genuine thought was like, oh, he knows me.
Yeah.
I just got out.
Name in the paper stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, but Club Slut was one of the worst monikers you could cop.
Club Slut.
And it was never from like, you know, Manly to Parramatta or Manly. It was never the strong clubs. It was always, you know, Gordon to UNSW.
Yeah.
Like there'd be blokes who'd get their first grade cap at Uni of New South Wales, and it's like, all right, mate, yep, take a photo with your dad. Good on you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Playing first at Uni of New South Wales. Fucking hell. Yeah. Like, it's like, you know, you've got a degree, but you went to TAFE type thing. That's the vibe. Like,
club snobbery is an important element. Like, you respect, like, anything that Bradman touched, obviously, like St. George had a great culture as well. Manly had a great, like, Manly's culture from like a perspective of mine was like, it was associated to the beach culture, you know, and the beautiful ground and like the wallabies trained there.
And it was
like
a class thing as well.
Yeah.
Like, we thought we were better than everyone.
Yeah.
Because we, like, came from Manly, and Manly Oval's right on the beach. And
I think you guys would talk that up a lot. Like, you know, you couldn't go 2 sentences without saying God's country or something like that as well. But there's still a lot of blokes in piping hot T-shirts at Manly as well. You know what I mean? There's the grommet level as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it was quite as, like, classy as you blokes probably thought it was.
No. You'd probably argue, like, Eastern Suburbs was who we thought we were.
Yes.
And I would argue...
It's just sliding real into Sydney stuff.
Yeah, sorry. Should we move on a little bit? I feel like
we're all addicted.
A little bit too general, but or not general enough maybe. But I remember, like, some of the blokes who were, like, my heroes coming up, they were quite toxic blokes.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a lot
especially when you look back as an adult as well. You're like, I was very impressionable to a lot of toxic men.
Yeah, I had to unlearn a lot of stuff when I left grade cricket.
I'm glad you
and you sort of go, oh, okay, maybe don't say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was good though. Like it's just a lot of stuff that would rev you up as a 19-year-old. Like I remember one of the blokes, Flat, I used to play with. He used to say, you know, if you get in a bind, start a fight out there and watch the blokes rally around you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's red hot. I remember we were down at Graham's one day playing threes, and Flat's bowling backwards, you know, hooping them around. And he's coming, this big bloke from Penrith is out there, and Flat's come in and bumped him, you know, Mitch Marsh style, like 110 or whatever.
Yeah.
And the bloke's put him into the pool. I've never seen a bigger six. Do you know what I mean? And Flat's come down and gone, fuck you, or going off at him. And I was like, what? I'm like 18 going, what the hell is this? Did he just see what happened? I think he thinks it was the ball before or something. But then next thing you know, I'm in there going, yeah, fuck this bloke. Yeah. Like, and it did rally the boys.
Yeah.
And you just sort of like, it's like one bloke's been unhinged. It's like, let's just all be unhinged.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you've taken a couple and we're fucking on, you know? So there is a bit of that behavior where stuff that is quite psychopathic in any other context does work in grade cricket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there was times where you would chat blokes out saying stuff where you've gone, I'm quite ashamed I've said that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you just be like, well, they're 2 for none. And I got
exactly the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
Really. And hostility works.
Yeah.
Hostility does work. The worst version of me was if we had runs on the board and I'd got a few in the first innings. That was the absolute worst version of me.
Or best.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember I said to the Aikens at the famous North Sydney family.
Friends of mine, yeah.
Yeah, great blokes. Great guys.
Scholars and gentlemen.
Yeah, and I've met them after because I had friends play at North and they're great guys. But I remember I got runs in the first innings once and Glenn Aiken came out to bat And I was just being such a prick, just purely because they were 2 for none and we had 350 on the board. Like, he was like a 30-year-old man and I'm like 21.
Yep.
There's no reason I should be disrespectful to him.
Yep.
But the game and the context I'm standing in allows me to do so. And it's beneficial to me. So you're sort of like backdooring all this horrendous behaviour.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, like, mate, you know, 4 wooden spoons in a row for your club. How many generations of your fucking family will it take to make this club relevant? Like, what are we doing? Maybe your grandson will play a quarterfinal one day. Like, this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I look back and I think, that's pretty fucking average, really. But at the time, I thought it was pretty cool. And I think that's like the cult
That's
of grade
culture.
cricket.
Yeah.
You're literally behaving like a psychopath under the guise that it's for some greater good, which is, in this case, the Manly Warringah District Cricket Club.
But I think a lot of these chats are. I should point out Aitken's perfect example of great blokes when you get to know them, but reputation preceded them from their father through to them. Red mist guys on the field, great cricketers. Red mist on the field, off the field. 2 teachers and a doctor, which is not something that you find in grade cricket. Like, guys who hold down jobs, who are thoughtful and intellectual and academic, just red mist on the field. But, you know, and fall into that category of once you get to know them.
That game, we bowled them out for like 140 and we got 350. And we were shaking hands at, 2 o'clock or whatever, early finish. And they said, where you going, lads? And they said, send Darcy back out, because I opened the batting. And then they just bowled another 10 overs, just calling me a prick and all the rest of it. Stuff that probably doesn't belong on the airwaves, unfortunately. And then once they had enough, they were like, we're done now. And we went off. And that's just how it was back then.
And what you're saying is that you got through 10 overs of a new ball.
Yeah, that's right, 10 overs.
Sorry, it's a long way to say I was 30 knots. So,
I played in a game with the Aitkins where the guys continued on batting after they passed us. So they started bowling left-handed and sitting on the ground.
This is the pyramid that serves Australian cricket.
And this is, I think it's a lot of people, particularly in areas like Delhi and Mumbai and Chennai will be listening to this going, this is ultra specific, guys. But I think that it's an important kind of context to the position that Australian cricket finds itself in right now, right? So obviously, second test hasn't begun as we go to air, but like Australian cricket has, is borderline existential crisis right now.
Because they're not exhibiting any of the psychopathic behaviour I've just been talking about.
Well, every time Australian cricket gets into trouble, the only, like on the field and off, the only response from the kind of, I guess, the guardians and the custodians of the baggy green and Australian cricket is hostility. And that's why we see through the media, we're characterising, we're archetyping our captain who's won everything as Coldplay Cummins. He's gone to the wrong kind of gig. Right? It's like there's a symbiosis there. We're hearing criticism of George Bailey wearing the team tracksuit and shaking Indian players' hands. After we lost a game,
disgusting stuff.
It's disgusting. He should be sitting in a different
thinking
spot.
About it. I actually vomited this morning.
That's right. Too close to the players. I wanted to know where you sat in the culture wars of Australian cricket, because you understand the success that comes through being a psychopath cunt. You've lived it. You are it, on the field. And yet on the other hand, there are these new wave, woke leftards who have won everything, but also they're nice.
And that is the case, that it's become clear that winning without abusing your on the way to winning is actually not what we're into. It turns out we want to win a specific way, and it's real kicking dirt in your face type stuff.
Because we have won for several years like this, but it just ain't hitting right.
I think there's a vibe in Australian cricket that if something goes wrong, you can abuse your way out of it. Whether that's the opposition, whether we get in JL for a second go round, we can slap Uzi around a bit more on Amazon Prime. Like, there is that thing like, could we get in a bigger cunt? Do we need to be more of a cunt? Could we get in a bigger cunt to tell them how to be one?
Right.
There's that sort of a vibe. And I think that's why everyone hates Marnus, is because he's not doing well, which is fine. People don't do well all the time.
It happens,
But because of Stump Mike and various interviews, it's become clear that he's actually quite a nice guy, and more than that, he's actually quite a unique person.
He likes the game and he expresses it.
It's become clear that if it wasn't for his batting abilities, he would be wearing a piping hot t-shirt. And I think the country's picked up on the fact that his wardrobe is probably pretty fucking average. And that's fine. I think it's the same with Steve Smith with his tics and his weird faces that he makes when the ball seems slightly and he's making all sorts of weird faces. And it turns out that stuff's a lot more charming when you're averaging 80.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Do
you know what I mean?
Exactly right.
It's
exactly
like there's a lot of comedians who are really weird socially,
Yes.
but they're so good on stage that you can look past it. And I think, Marnus and Steve Smith are finding out that it's all good to be a weirdo, assuming the results are there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they're not there. And I think Marnus has got to stop bowling because the bowling's trash, for one. Let's put that to the
It's hurting
side.
him, yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is, while Marnus is bowling, they're talking about his batting.
Yes.
If I was him, I would just be at backward square because every time he's in at the stump mic, every time he's bowling bumpers, he's bowling these leggies outside leg. That's just an excuse for them to be like, and he's batting like shit. Do you know what I mean? Like he's on the screen all the time. I tell you, Uzi's out at backward square, hands in his pockets, going, don't worry about it. You won't
trying
for
to catch
Australia
him.
again.
Yeah. You won't hear from Uzi in the field.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. Do you know what I mean? So I think the problem is, we're finding out that these blokes, they're not cunts. And it's become apparent now that we're not winning so much, we've had time to think about who they are.
Yes.
Totally.
People don't like it.
I think also as well this idea that there's a riff in the team because there's like everyone's so nice.
Yeah.
So the idea that there is a riff titillates a little bit because it's like there's actually some mongrel.
Yes.
But at the same time we know that they're all friends and so it actually can't be true and the idea is actually quite absurd when you think about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you've played in great teams as we all have and you think like if your batters keep failing you and you're a bowler, you'd be like, lads, any fucking danger. Like that's a normal emotion, but it titillates the mongrel within.
Yeah, and that's also the old school. Just the thing is, blokes just want to see some nostrils flare up a bit.
Yeah.
Pat Cummins'
throw a
nose
punch.
doesn't move when he's on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We want a bit of
yeah.
fucking, we want a bit of get ready for a broken fucking arm.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, like that got people around on. Michael Clark was cool for 3 years off the back of that.
Yep.
Do you know Michael Clark got Botox and was still skating by on get ready for a broken fucking arm? That's how much we loved it.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm hammered, I'll just get it up on TikTok and just repeat, you know, and just black out and just wake up better for it. But
because this is the demon within of Australia, right? This is what we turn to when things go wrong.
Yes.
The team is under pressure. Do you think and I know you're very big on optics. From an optics perspective, Cummins would be well advised to abandon the entirety of his principles and values to flare a nostril or two in a bid to create some insurance against a loss. Because as we're saying, like all Australia wants is just is the social. What sits underneath. We need a nostril to flare. Would that be your advice?
Well, I would say a few things for Pat Cummins. Stay away from Chris Martin. I think that was poor, Chris Martin's consciously uncoupling from his wife and hanging out with Pat Cummins.
Yes.
It's all a little bit inner west for me.
Yes.
And I have a theory with Pat Cummins that he's actually not a tree-hugging lefty. I think the Origin Energy ads were so embarrassing and the scripts were so fucking weird that he had to say, I morally object.
Yeah.
That's why he started Cricket for Climate?
That's why he started Cricket for Climate because he just didn't want to go in and pull Nathan Lyon's head out of the oven for the 5th time and say, what are you doing in there, Gary? Get your bloody head out of the oven. We're with Origin Energy. Turn the heater on,
Yeah.
Like, that was just horrendous. I mean, Alex Carey's eyes were just pushing those ads over. Every time you're like, this is the most embarrassing. Oh, there's Carey in 6K. Oh, yeah. And then you're just signing up for Origin Energy. But I think the Pat Cummins thing, the Coldplay thing was poor, but I think this idea, it's kind of like the house is on fire and it's that meme where the guy's out the front being like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, and I think this is what someone was saying on your pod. Like, I hate the press conference nature. Like, there was a blatant bat off in the preseason, right? And I was foaming for the bat off. There was 3 or 4 blokes going for the one spot, and George Bailey comes out and says there is no bat off. And it's like, mate, just feed the wolves. There's a bat off coming, And he said Cam Bancroft's shield innings don't necessarily matter because of his previous form. What he should have said was, fuck everything that's happened before 6 weeks ago. This is a bat off to the death, you know? Just tell us like it is. And Pat Cummins being like, we're all the best of friends. We're going out for pale ales later, sitting around the fire. Someone needs to come out and say, yeah, we're sick of this shit and it's time to rev it up a little bit as it was. But yeah, I think if there is a criticism of these boys, potentially devoid of lightning rod personality.
Here's the problem I think they've got is that I don't think you can put, in fact, you actually can put a monetary value on like an Indian player sledges an Australian player. And it's like, oh, I could buy it back, but I also want to buy a house. You know, and so like the IPL, you know, like you got Jaiswal telling Mitchell Starc he's too slow, and he's like, I love Jaiswal. What a
quip.
How good's that? That's very good. Now he's got some repayments to make, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a factor that we have to think about. Because like if let's say in this test match coming up, like, you know, he rips out, he's off stump, you know?
Yep.
Like, can you imagine the nation getting around there? He's going to walk past him and he'll be like, oh, I can't believe I've got out Jaiswal. It's so good. You know, but what we want to tell is to tell him to fuck off.
Yeah, and I think there is that thing, going back to grade cricket, where...
because they've got no idea what kind of like respect they would garner in the nation if they just switched to being psycho.
Yeah, but then he's thinking that stump cam also goes back to Star Sports. Do you know what I mean? And the auction's coming around.
Yep.
Got the place in Mossman. So I see what you're saying there, Higo. But I think as well it goes back to grade cricket where that thing of like, you know, the 35-year-old fast bowler in the corner stinks, doesn't talk. Do you know what I mean? Old school bloke, just snarls, like doesn't shower, you know, like that's sort of the vibe. And then now all of it, like, you know, Cummins is in a Gillette ad, you know, embracing his lovely wife who he treats like an equal.
Yes.
And the vibes are like, what's that about? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a bit of that where it's like Josh Hazlewood was 1% of that grade cricket fast bowler who you're a bit scared to walk past, who just stinks of Dankarub. And we were like, fucking oath, because that's the sort of bloke who would come on in April when it's raining and just bump the shit out of a 14-year-old and say something horrific to...
Because he's country. He's a man from the country. Yeah. Cummins, you know, claims to be country, but he also...
He's got a hobby farm.
He lives in Bronte.
Yeah. He's from the Blue Mountains. So it's that's a bit more hippy-dippy than a Kubra territory, I would say. That's a bit more anti-vax than cattle stuff. But if he wants to claim country, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to pull him up on country. He does have a pale ale coming out with Blue Mountains beers, so that's pretty inner west.
And I bet it's good.
I bet it tastes fucking delicious.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that Cummins is like, who's normally kissed on the dick. His timing's all wrong because in spite of having won a World Test Championship, have stewarded the team post Langer, have won an unlikely World Cup overseas, has been part of a T20 World Cup, retained the Ashes, all of those things. He finds himself a sort of a centre-left style guy at a time when Trump is on the rise.
Yes.
And Dutton may get voted in, and the nation online and off wants something more visceral. They want something more angry. That the pale ale from Blue Mountains just ain't cutting it for the nation right now.
Everywhere's leaning right, you know.
Yeah.
Rogan, Musk, France,
that's right.
Italy, Trump, you know.
Yeah, and there's a vibe that Josh Hazlewood could be voting for Peter Dutton in 2025. And I think there's a fair few blokes around the country going, I wouldn't mind a bit of that.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't mind just a liberal pace bowler. Do you know what I mean? Shut the board, like tight on the borders, tight on off stump. Yeah. And I think
So Billy, here's your chance. Here's your chance. We'll cut this up into chapters. We've obviously correctly and thoroughly diagnosed the ills of Australian cricket, which is that we need to be cunts. But also,
I would say, just to make my point known on the biggest platform this country has, that I'm very pro this team, and I'm pro Marnus. I think Marnus will come good
for now.
That's right.
We'll see what opinions can change.
Sorry, does this come out next Wednesday?
But let's look at it from the other angle, because most people watching this are just waiting. And if you are joining us at the chapter that says Billy Darcy on Bumrah, well, hello and welcome, India mainly. So
shout out.
Yeah. So Billy, you know, there is an argument that all of these ills in Australian cricket are basically down to one of the greatest fast bowlers of all time just having a violent day out, and nobody now or historically would have ever been able to deal with Bumrah in the last game.
Yes.
I'm asking you, as a guy who played sort of 2s, 3s, 4s at a good club, so therefore brackets you're implying that you would have played 1s at a shit club.
Yes,
it's probably not true.
Sorry, if I wasn't explicit enough with that. I could not. I would have played once at uni.
I know heaps of blokes like you. Yeah,
Yeah.
You would have captained South Australia.
Yes.
And played a bit of county. Bit of category. Yeah. How do you face Bumrah? How do you deal with Bumrah? What's your general treatise on Jasprit Bumrah?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? When Steve Smith walked out on that first day, I reckon anyone in that situation across the history of cricket was a dead man walking. Like, what would you do? I honestly think Nathan McSweeney going out should, when you go to the Easter show and your nan and pop used to write, "My name's Billy. If lost, please call this number." I think Nathan McSweeney's parents should write that on his arm when he goes out to face Bumrah. "My name's Nathan. Here's my dad's number. If I'm found with one pad crying in the stands, send me up for a sandwich." It looks fucking tough is what I'm saying. It looks real tough. I think you almost have to pick how you would prefer to be dismissed.
Yes.
Because I
like that.
I think Marnus doesn't know if he wants to nick off or get his pads blown off.
Yeah. Well, he got pads blown off last test, basically. I know he nicked off, he just got dropped, but like Coley. But
so I just think what would Ricky Ponting do in this situation?
Yeah.
As I often do when life hits me with a curveball.
Yeah.
Yes.
Misses leaves. What would Punter do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ponting wines.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. You open a Shiraz. And anyway, I just think Ponting, I can just see him lunging at Bumrah.
Yeah.
I could just see Ponting saying, I mean, this is crazy, me putting words in the mouth of one of the greatest cricketers that's ever played for this nation. But I just can see Ponting being like, "I don't care if I nick off, but you are not getting me out LBW because I'm going to be so far down the wicket and I'm going to be so far outside off." Whereas, I'm not vibing this thing where blokes start batting on off and then move back and across. And then Marnus is nicking balls that would miss seventh stump.
Yep.
And then he's getting out LBW. I just think he needs to make up his mind if he wants to nick off.
How he'd like to get out.
Yeah, I think you're getting out, but I think it's not about if the plan's going to work, because it's not.
Yeah.
But have one anyway.
Yeah, because we're talking cultural matters here, right? Like, arguably and mathematically, it doesn't matter which way you get out, you're going to be out. But I heard Cowan say this on the ABC. It's like, I'd rather edge than be bowled.
Yes.
And because culturally in Australia, you're like, nicking off, there's it can happen, guys get nicked off, but if you get out LBW, you leave yourself open to the comments section saying that his front pad's been blown off. There's the only way to be LBW now is to be 9/11'd at the shin.
Bit of
so it's now we're back into optics.
I mean,
so how you'd like to get out.
Yeah, the LBW, there's a chance that next year on an AFL Mad Monday, one of the GWS boys will be coming as Marnus Labuschagne's front pad. In yet another disgusting piece of sketch comedy. Yeah. But I do think, talking optics, I think the optics of, because it's not just about Marnus, and Smith does this as well, like Marnus, okay, you've had your front pad blown off. Don't then fall to the ground and be face first in the turf.
If possible.
And just get off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Because those kinds of dismissals are reserved for players at the end of their career, like a Ricky Ponting, who was knocked over by Callis, wasn't it? He fell to the turf forward, which is kind of symbolic of the eyes are painted on with acrylic. It's over. Whereas when you're 30 years old and theoretically at your peak, being knocked over like that is very problematic, again, optically and from the comments section perspective.
Yes, and that's Marnus's biggest issue.
Yeah.
Because I don't really care how he gets out, but he has to do something to win back the comments section.
Yes.
Because if I follow cricket.com.au on Instagram. It's one of India's biggest online cricket pages.
Yes.
And if you've lost the comments section on cricket.com.au to the point where people talking about Marnus are sifting through all the Kohli chat to the point where it's on top, you are fucked.
Yes.
And you need to remedy that. And that's the problem with the bowling, the bumpers and the leggies. It's just optics. Yeah, it's all optics. So I don't know what Marnus should do, but I tell you what, the only certainty in life is uncertainty.
Yes.
Marnus is the problem, but I firmly believe he's the solution.
Exactly.
And as far as, bring this person in, bring that person in, we've got fucking McSween out there lost on the roller coaster. Do you know what I mean? He went to wood chopping and lost his nan.
Yes.
So now we're dropping Marnus as well when we've got the McSween machine out there. And I love McSweeney, but he's just obviously on a hiding to nothing right now. It's I just think fucking leave Marnus alone.
Yeah.
And do you know,
maybe
the player we need is prime Marnus.
Yeah.
That's who we need.
He's the elixir.
And he's 30. I don't know. and he's been out of form for 2 years. Like, everything says he's like a second away from 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about this? What about if someone does something good, which we know it won't happen, but what if they did? Because we can really elevate someone to hero, godlike status.
Yes.
And like, look, sitting here before a ball is bowled, it's someone in that top 4 could elevate themselves to something.
That's what's sitting with this test.
Yeah. It's like they have confected an opportunity to make them fucking gods.
Yeah, so
you know?
not like because there's so much emotion around the game,
Right.
And like you mentioned optics, Billy. Like, part of the problem with the optics of this team right now is that they're losing at the wrong time, and by that I mean when Australians are watching.
Prime time.
Yes. Like, we're in prime time Australia, summer, footy's over,
Yep.
so everyone's watching and caring about the cricket. Now, they've been shit for about 12 to 18 months, Australia, but it's been on Amazon and during footy season.
Yes.
Or playing the West Indies or Pakistan, so we're not really given
Doesn't
one,
count.
caring about AFL
Doesn't
time
count. Yes.
trials, etc. So what we're saying is, in this game, there's an opportunity for one of the top 4 batters to make a memorable, courageous 100 that gets the montage treatment and rallies Australia around. You know, Cummins' team can actually elevate themselves once again because this is primetime optics.
Yes, and it's the top 4.
Yeah.
Basically, the top 4
v
sucks
Bumrah
at the moment. The top 4 v Bumrah. And but what you're saying about how no one watches when we don't play in Australia, if Cam Green was fit for this summer, there'd be a lot of blokes in pubs around Australia going like, if he doesn't do something in the first innings, get rid of him.
Exactly.
They wouldn't even know that he played like a generational knock in New Zealand.
Exactly. It didn't happen.
Yeah, they'd have no idea.
But as it stands, he's actually Australia's best player
He's now our best
just
player.
like every single player who's not in the team. So
Yeah.
who's a wonderful player for Australia now? David Warner.
Yes.
Ian Chappell's out there this week saying that the Aussie players should be talking about how great he was.
Yep.
I don't know what utility that has.
Nisa.
And with respect, Nisa is a
Nisa.
fantastic player. Cam Green is Sam Constas is the next Ponting right now.
Yep.
Marcus Harris is looking good. Cam Bancroft is looking good.
Yep.
It's a great time to be unfit or not selected or retired.
Yeah,
in the
I tell you
Australian
what,
cricket team.
speaking of the bat off, what about, once the squad was selected, all of a sudden, Renshaw 100, Bancroft 100, Weatherald 100, it's like, oh, yeah, boys, a little bit easier now, isn't it,
the bat off. So,
All of a sudden-
if I'm Conscious, I want to make my debut against England. Like, England's going to be tough next year as well, but it's not Bumrah tough.
Yeah.
Why would you want to get yourself into this series?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what you do out there, to be honest. But it has to be Marnus, because you are
Has to be
Usman
Marnus.
Khawaja, who I'm number one Uzi guy.
Yep.
I love him more than anyone. But, again, the word optics, as balls crash into his chest at third slip, it's just... I got to say...
He loses one in the sun, which
Yeah,
can happen.
yeah,
The Perth
yeah,
sun,
yeah.
it is particularly hot.
I mean, the sun is up there.
Yeah.
So,
It's up there. It's up there. It
They don't
always has
call it a
been.
furnace for nothing.
yeah. And so Uzi, he's 38.
Yep.
Steve Smith is also quite old. And then, the McSween machine is quite young.
Yes.
Marnus Labuschagne is 30. Do you know what I mean? He's in the prime of his life. He's the guy who has to do it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do it, we're fucked, which is why I don't understand why everyone's like calling for his head. It's like, this is the only bloke who can get us out of this. Travis Head can only play like so many miracle innings.
Yeah.
And you could argue he's already played one.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I find it amazing that despite many people thinking Marnus's game in Perth was one of the worst performances from an Australian play ever, he goes into the next game with a larger role as Australia's fourth seamer.
How can we get this guy more in the game?
I think Bailey's put his cojones on the line here selectorially. Like, Marnus has increased his role and responsibility in the team from first test to second, given Mitch Marsh can't bowl and you got Slug Webster waiting there in the wings.
Well,
Marnus has done well.
Mitch Marsh bowling slower than Marnus Labuschagne was not great to look at.
Yeah.
And
That was tough as well, yeah.
that was definitely tough as well. But I don't know what you do, to be honest, and I'm not going to pretend to. But I just think Marnus is... It was the same with Dave Warner. Like, you guys have been sort of saying that the Dave Warner victory lap shouldn't have been done, and I sort of agreed. But at the time, I guess you could have played Bancroft, and I guess we probably should have, in hindsight, because he was averaging 50 in the Shield. But, Warner was doing the Toyota jumps, and that was a bit of fun. So
Oh, yeah, and I don't think there's much else to talk about.
there wasn't really
and I
anything
think
else
his
happening.
160 in Perth ends up saving Australia and another game that could have cost us.
Yeah.
Almost as though the team's been in decline for a little while.
It was a deliverable for the Toyota sponsorship that Warner do the jumps.
Yeah,
that was just that.
Yeah, I got to say, yeah, Dave Warner, not to be too critical on the pod, but Dave Warner on KO, I tell you what, there's no love lost. He's trashing Marnus, and he played with him this year. Do you know what I mean?
But what do you say?
Isn't there a grace?
These are your words, obviously. But
isn't this I just thought, isn't it like sort of an honour among thieves, gentleman's club? Like, I'm not going to trash the blokes I've just played with too much.
His teammates with Bancroft at the Thunder, and he sort of dissected his technique.
Well, he came out, I swear, unprompted. They were like, what do you think of the bowling attack? And he was like, I wouldn't pick Bancroft. And you're like, that was not what was asked. At all. So, I'm not sure what it is, but there's clearly, I thought there was a code.
Well, yeah.
There's no code.
Yeah, no code.
Because obviously once you hit then sort of 45...
He might argue that he's upheld the code in relation to other issues a few years ago.
Yeah.
Stum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I tell you what, when Michael Clark puts on the headset on AM radio, there's no fucking code, I'll tell you that. He does the thing where he sits on the chair backwards, Clarky.
Yeah, I've seen that.
When he really starts going off.
Yeah, that's right.
He's actually quite good on the radio, Clarky. Yeah. That's a weird one, not to go off topic, but Michael Clark was my number one hero growing up.
What a player.
Had the V900 Pro. Yeah. I think it's, Clarky number 4 all time for this country. I think it's like him border war. Okay. For that 4th position.
Or like batting 4 in the
I think
time. That's just 4.
I think he goes Bradman, Smith, Ponting, and then border war Clark, whatever. Like, when people get fired up about stuff like that, like, oh my God, as if you said that. Fine, you're correct. I don't care at all. But I'm just saying, post-career, I haven't enjoyed the same fandom as I have during his career.
Yeah, right. For a guy who made... Test runs he made, was it 8,000? 10? Did he get? He didn't get.
I think more.
Did he get?
Might have been 9.
Yeah. Averaging what, 48, 49.
Yeah.
Also carried this country on his back.
Yeah.
For like 4 years when we sucked.
Yeah.
He scored a 100 in Sydney against India.
Yeah.
With no bat sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nude bat.
That's as toey as it gets.
Yep.
Yes, agree. Yep. But I do feel like he's been a little bit, erased from the official history of Australian cricket.
Yeah.
But Cricket Australia knows that, like, if they're not putting together like edited highlights, clips of Pup's greatest innings, for cricket.com.au to rifle through that CPM online.
When he retired, I've never seen anything like it, where other players were doing press conferences about how much they dislike him. Michael Clark's retired. Usually it would just be a PowerPoint of what a weapon he is. Instead, Matthew Hayden's down at a local park with a Channel 7 camera in his face going, absolute prick.
So maybe there's a modicum of safety to that as well, though, because it's just an extension of what we ultimately want cricket to be in Australia. We want it to be hostile, combative, internally, externally. We don't feel normal unless people hate others. Yeah,
I mean... Makes sense. Plenty of blokes I played with I disliked, but there's, obviously you like most of them as well. And I think that's really the dirty secret of grade cricket is anytime you did have a beer with the opposition, obviously only if you were lucky enough to make it to a grand final, were you then able to put your swords down and meet your opponents.
Yeah.
They would all just be exactly the same as you. They just lived 3 suburbs away.
Exactly.
And they're all legends.
Yep.
I've had blokes come to my stand-up shows who I've played in grand finals against in grade cricket. And... they were the nicest guys. And they were like, from Penrith at the time, I thought they were the biggest pricks. And then I had beers with them after the show and they were so lovely.
Yeah.
They're just exactly the same as you. They did exactly the same thing growing up. Saturdays, training, everyone's the same.
But I tell you what, when I'm having a pale ale with them in the Inner West after a stand-up comedy show, I tell you what I'm not fucking doing is getting 6 points. You know what I mean? And that's the choice you have to make. Do you want to smile and drink pale ales with Pat Cummins and Marnus? Or do you want to put your foot on some cunt's throat? Red pill, blue pill type stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are. It's red pill, blue pill. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But speaking of Uzi, I just wanted to run this past you guys. Yeah. And I've heard you say this before. He goes in passing. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to do. But speaking of Uzi, because I'm such an Uzi fan, I was tearing my hair out when he wasn't getting picked for that 3-year period where it was like, the Burns-Harris era.
Yep.
That era. The Burns era, with respect to Joe Burns, was not an electric one for the opening partnership of Australia.
Captain of Italy now.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's landed on his feet. There's no doubt about that.
He has done well.
Yeah. But there was a point where I reckon Uzi was comfortably in the top 3, if not top 4 batsmen in the country and was not getting picked.
Right.
Like, how many years of this bloke's prime were we robbed of? Like from like 28 to 33, he didn't play, or 29 to 33. It blows me away. Like, I want reparations or something. Like,
yeah. What numbers we've missed out on?
Yeah.
I'm thinking for him, he's probably missed out on $5 million.
Yep. All right. You're thinking about his earning capacity.
Bunts,
I'm massively thinking about the bunts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think about what could have been in terms of people's statistics. Like, we absolutely laud and love Mike Hussey, for example. Average 50. What are we looking at? Maybe 6,000 test runs or something like that. He played 70, 80 tests. Didn't debut until he was 30. He'd be entitled to be like, well, what if I was a generational great? What if I was selected at 21 and played, 9 years of Test cricket up until then? How many, what would the numbers be looking like? Or alternatively, if he was picked early, would his career have flamed out? Did he need to wait till he was 30? Did Aussie need those years away to come back and have that redemption arc that we appreciated?
Same with Smith, because Smith, he lost that year when he was probably in his peak, but he came back with a compensation.
He had
redemption
compensation runs.
Would we have got those hardcore
because
runs?
you come back angry.
Angry.
Yeah, okay.
Because when Uzi came back into the side, when Travis Head had COVID during the Ashes, he went back-to-back hundreds in the same SCG test.
Beautiful.
Would that have happened?
Yeah, we wouldn't have had a chance to, right the wrongs or prove people wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fuck you 100.
Yeah.
Fuck you runs.
Yeah, they were
runs.
fuck you runs, weren't they?
So it's hard to...
Do we get the LeBron celebration if it's not,
Yeah, well... Exactly.
Maybe it's a little bit more subdued. Another day at the office type stuff. Yeah, that's interesting.
I think Usman's in an interesting era, with the cliche being the euphemism, the end being closer to the beginning. Like, I feel like he's aware of post-career stuff. I feel like he's very much getting himself out there. He's signed up with Fox. Rachel, his wife, is with Seven. I feel like if he makes 100 this series, where I think the celebrations will be vigorous.
I like how he's easing us into being a media personality as well.
He'll be good too.
Whereas Warner, I felt like just kept the public at arm's length for 14 years, and then one day just turns up in an MJ Bale blazer like none of it ever happened. And it's it's hard to connect for $35 a month on KO.
Is KO going to like that or not?
But I do.
It's one man's view.
Yeah, I do love Uzi. But it does seem like there was a bit of a personality thing with Langer in that test documentary.
It does seem like that, doesn't
Langer
it?
was
He's saying despite their denials.
Yeah. So I am saying that. Yeah, hot take. Not to blow anyone's head off. But remember that scene where Justin Langer's right, it's the day before a test match. Test match conditions, new balls. If you get out in the nets, you're out.
Yep.
If anyone has an issue or wants to do something different, it's an open forum. Please feel free to say whatever you want. And Uzi goes, yeah, look, with respect, JL, I don't feel that's the best preparation for me. I need to hit more balls than that before a test. So I don't think that's really going to help me much. And JL said, yeah, Uzi, mate, no stress. How about you just shut the fuck up?
Didn't feel like an open forum.
Yeah, it didn't feel like,
I feel like, unfortunately, Uzi, he's an outspoken guy, and maybe that hurt him. I'm not sure, but it really feels like we were robbed of some great Uzi stuff over the years.
But we were given a great documentary.
Yeah, I guess so.
So
yeah, well, not all of us were invited to the Amazon Prime premiere, lads. Not all of us got a lanyard for that one, so maybe I'm feeling a little bit more on the outer.
Yeah.
But
I think that was one of the only times a company has asked us to remove something. I think we had Cummins on the red carpet, and I think the question was, if it's true that if you go woke, you go broke, what is your cash position?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was fine with that. But it was a call later saying, please remove that.
He lit up a cigar with $100 note.
Well, I said this on my podcast once, and I thought it was funny. But obviously, it's a podcast by myself, so no one was there to laugh. But I went to watch the Women's Big Bash, and it was just after the first ever WIPL auction. And I'd never seen this before in cricket. I saw Ashley Gardner give the umpire her hat and 50 grand to hold while she bowled. And I thought, fuck it, hell, you know what I mean? I've seen blokes wear the badge on the helmet before, but this is a bit much, Just hold on to that, love, and count to 6 for me, would you? Heavy pockets Gardner's coming in for a roll. It is, but it is interesting with the go woke, go broke stuff, because sometimes, you talk on podcasts and stuff or whatever, or just generally in life, I find myself thinking I guess I'm a lefty, But the things that make you a lefty in this country appear to be becoming like more and more reasonable, like not actively hating gay people. It's like, oh, old tree hugger McGee over here. Like, Cummins is like, I like the environment. It's like, Jesus Christ, stop hammering it down our throats,
Yeah,
mate.
that's right.
You know?
Politics out of sport.
Yeah, you and David Pocock get a coffee in your own time. Like,
You flying a jumbo jet. How does that tally?
it's like, I think it's pretty, it's not, why is it controversial in Australia, one of the most beautiful countries in the world, environment-wise, to be like, yeah, I actually like it, the environment. People are like, this prick,
That's right.
We
Who
have had
does he think he is?
Yeah, who does he
what
think
were these
he is?
books?
What, you don't love fracking, Paddy?
We have had
Mate,
this
punter,
week.
punter love fracking.
And it's not tough either.
Yeah,
it's not tough
pulling off the front foot and fracking. That's what
Yeah, I tell you what, a bloke who loves fracking would also get runs against Bumrah.
Yeah.
And you can-
We've had that this week with Zampa's selection.
Oh, that was very funny.
And a lot
That
of it was
stuff.
like he lives in Byron Bay.
Oh, wow.
Say no more.
Say less.
no more.
Say less.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. The absolute disgrace of him playing for New South Wales, as said by the people that select him.
I don't
that made
understand.
this-
The people who made the decision ultimately selected him would be like, well, he shouldn't have been selected.
well,
So what happened?
this shit.
I'm
It's
very
like-
confused.
Yeah.
It's not like, when they picked Brad Hogg for Australia from second 11. It's like Adam Zampa does currently represent Australia all the time.
He's the greatest white ball bowler in Australia's history.
So it's like-
judged by wickets.
Yeah, and so I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but at the end of the day, he has dyed his hair blonde.
Yeah.
And lives in Byron.
And that
Yeah.
bears talking about, if he had, like when Michael Clark said, get ready for a broken fucking arm, he had the just natural hair
Yeah.
with stubble,
Yes.
as a man should.
He didn't
Optics.
have tips then?
No, that was post tips.
Post tips.
Yeah. And so there, it does come back to a bit of that toughness stuff, I think. But
Well, the Zampa thing is connected. Yeah, like it's all like that's the birds are chirping about the system being wrong. When Zampa is being selected or being kind of given a passage through to the test team without playing grade cricket. Without playing state cricket or going to training to the extent that they want him to,
Yes.
then that like this conversation doesn't happen if Australia isn't trounced in that game.
I don't understand the Zampa stuff because we've got Todd Murphy and we have Roccacelli or whatever his name is. Mm-hmm. So I would say they're both ahead of him.
Yeah, and Kuhneman.
Kuhneman.
I think because
Yeah.
it's
So what-
because
we're done,
Sri Lanka is like the conditions are so bespoke and they think that it's going to be just the biggest shit tip for spin of all time, and that's the way they beat us. Like Zampa is trying to get the third spinning spot. He knows that Lyon will be picked. He knows that they'll go for a left arm orthodox as well.
Yep.
And that if Bailey and Co, and it has to be Bailey, wants a wrist spinning option, he's there, and it will be between him and Swepson or whatever. And
He's
and
looking
Zampa's
for a
just-
trip to Sri Lanka.
He's
rocking up to the airport with his surfboard.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly right. But it was just funny with him because all he's doing is asking, well, are you interested in me? And like they've said yes. So he goes to New South Wales. He's like, I'd like to play. And they go, okay. And then they pick him. And then afterwards, the selector comes out and goes like, well, we were made to pick him. Just like,
And he's got a weird haircut.
and the haircut and Byron Bay. And being a vegan.
Yeah, they really threw him under the bus there. But
Why does he bowl with leather cricket balls?
yeah,
He's a
yeah.
vegan.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a wife and a child, but is he gay?
I heard. I heard he slides them on because turning it's actually bad for the environment.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He doesn't
bowl stump to stump.
He doesn't want to upset the natural
right.
environment too
That's a
much.
good point.
So he just slides them on
slides them-
nicely.
that's right. Yeah.
Sort of keep the leave things as you found them,
Yeah, exactly.
as it were.
Tread lightly on the deck.
yeah.
Fuck, we're woke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
analogy
just
now.
bowling welcome to
Yeah.
countries when you think about it. But speaking of one day, I thought, are we letting that one go through to the keeper? Or no? I'm glad someone laughed at that. Otherwise, sometimes if people don't laugh, so you're like, oh, that was not great. But speaking of one day cricket, I wanted to run this past you lads.
Okay.
Why do they even play it anymore? Just end all one day cricket, especially state cricket. Why do they play it in any way, shape, or form? It's such a waste of money and time. Like the Shield, keep the Shield going. My dad watches every Shield game, and it's obviously very important for the Test team. But there's the women's team. There's fitting all this stuff in. Yeah. It seems like a no-brainer to just get rid of. Like the one day is we played against Pakistan. What was the point? No one knew they were on the telly. The stadium's empty.
Yep.
Cricket Australia, you're just burning money on this dead format.
I agree. I mean, and I think when we were kids, which obviously means that was the purest expression of the game, you know, the one day is contextualised test cricket. They were a gateway drug. It was pyjamas, it was colours, it was marketing. Still went for like 8 hours. But at that time, that was bite-sized cricket. And I think T20 plays that role for test cricket now. I think it kind of... It means one day cricket loses its meaning. And I agree. I think it should be fucked off. But I think the reason it's around is because, like, when India plays it on TV... it makes heaps of coin, and when lots of people put it on TV, it makes coin. And at the end of the day, if you understand cricket as a TV show packaged along entertainment principles for Indian fans, then one day cricket makes more sense.
Well, you've taken the fun out of that, but
sorry, I thought you were genuinely asking.
I was asking.
I don't have.
No, I was genuinely asking, but I guess I wasn't. I guess I didn't know the answer was going to be so succinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to really hit the nail on the head of that quite quickly. So, well, there you go. But it just sort of just take the specialness out of cricket, because I feel like people are like, oh, there's cricket on, what? And then I tell my friends, like, my mates who don't like cricket, I'm like, nah, don't worry about this cricket. I'll tell you when the cricket's on. Like,
totally.
Do you know what I mean? So it just kind of dilutes the product. And also the third one-dayer against Pakistan, where Aaron Hardy goes out to bat at 3 and, you know, Pat Cummins is singing Yellow or whatever. I don't mind Paddy Cummins going to the concert, but like playing, I don't mind Pat Cummins not playing. But batting Aaron Hardy at 3 in a decider. See, here's the thing. When that decider was on, I know that I don't care about the result. I don't care about the series at all. But when batting Aaron Hardy at 3 and playing like our third 11, that tells me that they don't care either. Which is like, that's what I thought was weird, because I was like, I know I don't care about this, but you guys don't care? I thought you guys would at least care. But it does. I don't think they do. Yeah. It's like just sort of like pre-season trials, but they're televised.
Yeah. If that was like a 5 T20 match series instead of 3 and 3.
Yeah.
More interest.
I agree. Yeah.
I guess that's that shows that like Test cricket's fucking great, even if we're getting pumped. And like, there's going to be some scenarios tonight, tomorrow that are just going to be like, this is so hot, so visceral, so emotional, and there's so many like the stakes are so high. There's so much riding on it. Perhaps we just need a lot of this shit cricket to appreciate the good stuff, particularly as it dies.
Yes. It's like when Bumrah was bowling on day one and Steve Smith was coming out to bat. I think in that moment, I think that is the hardest cricket can get. I don't think cricket can get harder than that.
Good shout.
And I was watching that, and I was literally like frothing, barking like a dog, you know, just foaming at the mouth. Like, and my roommates aren't into cricket, so they're all in the backyard, and I'm just ripping cans, going like, this is sick. And I'm watching that, and I'm thinking, this is why I don't give a fuck about the Sydney Sixers. Because you can't get this in the Big Bash. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'll never have this much pressure in a Big Bash game. Like, it'll never be this hard. It could be cooler than this. It could be flashier than this. It could be more exciting than this. But it'll never be harder than this. And do you know what I mean? Isn't that the point? You want to see the sport. You want to see the best of the best of the best. Like, so that's why Test cricket will just always be so sick.
I didn't watch the first Test, but I heard it was good.
What's your BBL draft, though? The battle.
Oh, dude, the BBL draft is so funny.
Thunder and Copes had a great draft.
Fuck it, hell.
Yeah, well, Billy,
I got one great story that I was going to tell, but then I guess we'll wrap up. Is that we've done like an hour or whatever? Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Bleed.
Feels like we sort of really, got through everything really. But I thought there was just, speaking of great cricket, there was one story that came to mind when I was coming on this pod that I thought I might tell.
Yes.
And it's got really nothing to do with cricket, but I guess, great cricket, that's kind of what it is, you know what I mean? Cricket's sort of the backdrop.
Correct. For
the men who inhabit that space. And anyway, so it was one of the old, basically playing twos at Drummoyne Oval. And, second grade, you got to be there at 8. So you got to wake up, it's like a 45-minute drive, sort of wake up at like 6:45 or whatever. But one of the lads is taking me and my mate Sammy Gaines to the game. Lift sorted, right? So had a pretty big Friday night. And I got in at like 4:30-ish, quite large, but I've got this lift sorted. Yeah. So like the lift has informed the night out. If I didn't have the lift, I wouldn't have stayed out so late.
No lift, no.
Because I was on my P's at the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, my mate who's driving us, who's one of the older blokes at the club, he'd been done drink driving and he had a breathalyzer in his car. And he'd had a couple of beers the night before. Nothing too big, but you have to blow 0 or the car shuts down for 24 hours. So I wake up at 6:45, steaming.
Yeah.
And he calls me up and he goes, Bill, mate, I've just blown into the car and it's shut down for 24 hours. You're going to have to drive us to Drummoyne Oval.
Oh, no.
I said, mate, I've had like an hour's sleep and I'm on my green pea. He's like, I can't drive us. Like, I'll blow over. And he goes, well, fuck, Gaines is going to have to drive us. I go, all right, I'll call him. And I know Gainesy's younger than me. I know he's on his P's as well, but I don't know what he's been up to the night before. So I said, Gainesy, here's the deal, mate. You know, old mate's car is broken down for 24 hours or whatever. I'm on my P's. You're going to have to drive because I've only had an hour's sleep. And he goes, fucking hell, Bill. I've just walked in. Right? And I go, what? He goes, I've literally just walked in. I'm waiting for you guys to pick me up. Yeah. I haven't slept. And I go, fuck me. I go, fucking hell, all right. So I said, Mum, chuck us the keys, babe. Let's go. Like, so I'm driving the boys out to Drummoyne, pretty dizzy, you know, back streets. And we get
Manly.
Yeah, from Manly. Yeah, so it's a while. Yeah. Up Military Road, you know, got ways open. I'll put it that way. And and anyway, we get to the ground and like rampant green top at Drummoyne Oval. And I go out to open the batting, and a bloke is just absolutely, it's fucking humming through. You know when you're like, this bloke's played once, he's obviously got work commitments or something. He's not able to trade as regularly as some of the other elite bowlers in this club. And I've obviously nicked off immediately, and we were hammered into the core of the earth outright, most of which that day. And I remember in the second innings, that fast bowler, he's like knocked me over both innings, right? And like they needed 60 to win in the second innings to beat us outright in like a day and a bit. And he's just hacking away. He's come out as a pinch hitter and he's got a few away. And I go, mate, you're honestly like the most disgraceful hack I've ever come across. And he walks over to me at like mid-wicket and he goes, mate, I've got you out twice for a total of 3. Can you just shut the fuck up? And that was one of my last great cricket memories. And I haven't said a word since, to be honest. But yeah.
Billy Darcy, sensational having you in, mate. Anyone who wants to catch Billy's, I guess, preaching from the pulpit on the podcast, Get Around Me.
Thank you.
That's where you get it. And where can people catch you on stage, mate, from around
Australia? So I will be doing a big 2025 tour, so I appreciate the opportunity to plug it. I feel like we've got some crossover. So I'll be going like all the capital cities in Australia, and I'll be doing 2 weeks at the Melbourne Comedy Festival next April 8 to 20. So those tickets will be available like, February next year or some shit.
We'll have to have you back in then to discuss IPL at that point. That's peak IPL season, so we can maybe do, Punjab versus Sunrisers or something like that.
Yeah, I would love to come in. Even though I'm just a stand-up, I do consider myself a cricket analyst.
Yes.
So I would hope that you guys would think of me as such.
That's why we've got you in.
Yeah. I wanted to say cricket analyst and stand-up comedian Billy Darcy joins us. I told my dad, all my stand-up stuff, and like I always have to like try and relate it back to my mum and dad. Like mum's like, I'll tell my mum about this big show I did, and she's like, "What?" And then I'll be like, "Oh, Kitty Flanagan was there," and she'll be like, "Oh, Kitty, I love Kitty," Like,
yeah.
So then, like for my parents, I was like, "I'm going on the Grade Cricket." I was like, remember that book, Dad? And he's like, "Oh, that was a good book." It's like the Grade Cricketer. Yeah, I don't know those boys. I go, Paul Kelly was the guest last week. He goes, holy fucking shit, Paul Kelly. You know what I mean?
So, why do you think we're doing ABC Grandstand?
Yeah. So I think seeing Paul Kelly was on last week, I was like, this is sick. I can't believe I'm following Paul Kelly. You know what I mean? Fucking unreal. So thanks for having me on. I'm a massive fan of the pod.
All good. Well, we'll have you back when you're next in Melbourne, mate. But all the best for the tour. Thanks for regaling us with the grade stories, etc. We'll put all the details in the show notes as well for anyone who wants to get along and get around Billy Darcy.
Thanking you, mate.